is the best job in the world, but if you're not making money, you're not profitable, it can be really fucking miserable. I've been a designer for 25 years now. I've started 4 companies of my own. In this video, I'm going to share 3 things that I've learned that allow me to be a happy and profitable designer. I hope you get some value out of this video. Let's jump into it. So the first thing to explain is that this has taken me years of building and tweaking, refining what I'm about to share with you. At first, this stuff might feel a little weird, and I feel like anything feels weird if we haven't been exposed to something before. But once you get this stuff down, honestly, it will change how you operate your design business. Imagine taking your client through a clear process, a repeatable process with profit for you at the end of your design process, where you're happy and a highly paid designer. This really is possible. You just need to learn how. And for me, it's about perspective. If we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. A mentor of mine, Errol Gerson, kind of drilled that into me a few years ago. And it really is important. If we change our perspective on how we do these things, we can really make things move in our world. And this is the realization that I'm trying to drive home here, is that you don't need to be overworked and burnt out in order to be a profitable designer. As designers, we should be highly paid for the value that we provide. And I think we forget that sometimes. We think we're, away in the corner here playing with our crayons, making logos are pretty. We're actually providing genuine business value to the clients we work with if we do this right. To be good designers, we can't be undercharging and burning out. It's such a recipe for disaster. We need to avoid this at all costs. We need to get paid fairly, on time, in order to do our best work. And I'm going to show you exactly what I do to get paid on time every time without ever having to chase an invoice. So there's 3 secrets that I use to be a profitable and happy designer. And these are what those 3 secrets are. The first is how to run a profitable design business with 3 simple unlocks. And I'll go into more detail about that shortly. The second secret is how to stop doing everything yourself and instantly make more money. And the third secret is how to double, triple, even quadruple your prices literally overnight. I've done it myself. I've helped other people do it, and I'll show you exactly how it works. So secret number 1, how to run a profitable design business with 3 simple unlocks. I had this false belief for a very, very long time, for the first few years of my career as a designer, that it's really hard to be profitable as a designer. And this is a completely false belief. It's completely untrue. And there's 3 things that you can do to be a profitable designer. The first is to know your MLE, which is your minimum level of engagement. The second is to have a watertight process, which I'll show you exactly how I do that with my studio shortly. And then the third is to have a clear agreement with your client. And again, I'll show you exactly how I do that, and screenshot whatever you want and copy whatever I've done here. I really don't mind. So how to work out your MLE. This is your minimum level of engagement. Let's say you run a design studio or any sort of a creative business. Your MLE is the least amount of money you can charge without losing money or wasting your time. So let's take an example here, a real life example. Let's say, for example, your salary, your rent, all your costs for running your business and paying you as a designer. Let's just say hypothetically it's $10,000 a month, right? If you can deliver a project within 4 weeks, that means that your MLE is $10,000 per project. So if you go $1 underneath that, you're going to be running at a loss, which means you cannot go under $10,000 per project. If you charge $10,000 for a project and you turn it around in 4 weeks, that is going to kind of even out and you're going to kind of break even. So that's your minimum level of engagement. Now, let's change this delivery time from 4 weeks to 8 weeks. Guess what? Your MLE is now $20,000 per project. So you can see how the time and money equation really does come into effect here. I never charge for time. I never charge for hours. I charge for projects. But when you look at it like this, on the back end of being a business owner like we are, this is a really, really important thing to get your head around. So really know your MLE, work out your minimum level of engagement. That will give you a good understanding of how your baseline of what you can charge is, and you never ever charge underneath that. The second is to have a watertight process. So this is our process for building a brand. This is a slide that I share with clients on the delivery call, on the the discovery call. And this is our 5-step process called Spark. It's taken me years to build this out and refine it, but this is an absolute flawless process. You can see the problem on the left-hand side. So the studio that I run, Electric Brands, we focus on, we niche down in kind of consumer and tech brands. So founders in consumer and tech, typically not first-time founders, but yeah, that's our niche. And you can see they have on the left-hand side, the problem they have is no brand recognition, slow traction, there's limited sales, unengaged customers. You'd be surprised how many founders I speak to spend a ton of money on marketing without an engaging brand. It really breaks my heart. Tons of founder anxiety and lots of sleepless nights. And I take them through this process. We start with a strategy. We do a 2 to 3 hour brand strategy workshop where we work through purpose, vision, mission, brand personality. We go through all the target audience analysis, competitors. We do all the positioning, manifesto, and taglines. I then move into what I call perception. So this is when I build out 3 different creative directions called flashboards. Very strategic here. We want them to hate 1 or 2 of them so that we know exactly what they like and what they don't like. And from that, I then move into advanced, which is the first time we actually design anything. So we do one concept that we present, which is grounded in some insights, written through an opportunity, based in a brand concept and designed from that brand concept. And we'll do a bunch of different brand marks and logo variations, one color palette, one typography pairings, and then a bunch of kind of image selection and treatment. And we'll roll that out across a bunch of mock-ups and renders to show how that will come to life. And there's 2 rounds of changes here for our clients. So even if we get this wrong completely, we have 2 opportunities to start again. And I make that very clear with our clients when we're working with them. But we present 1 round with 2 rounds of changes. So one iteration. Gone are the days where we do kind of 3 or 4 or 5 different logo variations. It just doesn't work for the type of business that I run and the type of clients that I work with. So once you lock off advanced, we move into rollout, which is when we roll out across typically around about 100-page brand guidelines document. Again, 2 rounds of changes there in scope. And then we move on over to kickoff, which is the handover stage. So we do a real detailed handover. We do a very detailed Loom video. My goal here is that clients never, ever need us ever again. I jokingly say, I hope we never see each other because you're not going to need us. And this just works because it empowers the client. They feel like they know how to use the brand because I've given them a real deep tutorial on how to use it, how to use all the assets to bring this whole thing to life. And they go away and do that. And they don't need to come back to us and ask us every 5 minutes how to use this and what to do with that logo and how to install the fonts, because we've just literally done everything for them. So the kickoff and the handover is a really important stage of this process too. And then the payoff is on the right-hand side. Our clients typically have a recognized brand, fast attraction, increased sales, diehard fans. Obviously, the marketing efforts go through the roof because they've got brand behind it now. Ton of reduced stress and a lot of optimism for the future for the founders and the team as well. So this is what I mean about having a process. This is the process that I work through with our studio clients. This is the process I walk them through at the prospect stage on a discovery call. And what this does, it just gives any prospect who's thinking of working with you a lot of peace of mind, a lot of clarity. It gets rid of any doubt because they know that this person has their shit together. They know what they're doing. And I can start on the left here. I can work through all these steps and end up on the right-hand side. This is exactly what I want to do. I'm over there now, and that's where I want to be. Let's jump in and do this. So that's really, really important to have a watertight process and make sure you know how this runs, run it step by step. And again, this is number 2 on how to be a profitable designer. The third thing is to have a very clear agreement. So I have kind of 2 agreements. One is a concept I've borrowed from a wonderful man named Jonathan Stark. He wrote this blog post years ago called the double thank you phenomenon, which I just run my entire life on. So when I'm in the prospect stage of talking with a client and whether we're going to work together or not, I always bring this up and I just said, hey, I heard this thing years ago. It's called the double thank you phenomenon. And the way Jonathan Stark talks about it in his article is he says how when you go and buy a coffee, you hand the barista the money and the barista says thank you, and then they hand you the cup of coffee and you say thank you. And it's not because you're both overly polite. It's this phenomenon where they value the money more than the coffee and you value the coffee more than the money. So I always have this conversation up front with my prospects in terms of just agreements. I want to make sure we're in a good place. We want to make sure we get to the double thank you, because if we can high five each other at the end of this project that we're about to embark on together and we both feel like we've got something amazing out of it, that's good business. That's how to do things. That's how we do everything in our business. So the double thank you is the first thing I call up. And then what we do is we tighten this up. So we have a statement of work that we send out. This is typically a 7 or so page document. It looks like this. I just build this on Mac in Pages. It's all written out. And then I send it via DocuSign. So it's kind of legal and all official. And this maps out every single detail of the project. So things like feedback on presentations within 48 hours of delivery. And again, calling this out, I mentioned this to them real early. Like, this is a really important thing. If we don't agree to this project is going to go out of scope, and that's a disaster for me as an independent designer, as an independent studio, because we've got to kind of plan how we run projects, and we can't be out of scope. So little things like this that we speak about at the prospect stage, we then put into black and white, we put into writing, and we send via DocuSign. So things like our payment schedule, we charge 50% upfront prior to any commencement of work, and 50% upon completion prior to handover of assets. We kind of nail this in from the beginning. We're never out of scope. We never have a situation where we're waiting for an invoice to be paid, because we don't do any work or hand over any work until the invoice is paid. And that's how we need to operate. So don't let those bigger clients bully you. Again, it depends on your niche and who you're working with, but you need to be able to stand up and go, this is how we operate, and put this stuff in black and white. Again, even the deliverables of a project, like I map this out, like every single step of the process, like there's no confusion at any stage. I never have a client going, where are we? What's happening next? A confused mind says no. So it's important that our client is never confused. They know every single step of the process we work through, and the statement of work is how we get there. Another quick kind of hack that I found in terms of getting invoices paid is we send out this type form for new clients that we work with, which is like all the business information we need to be able to send an invoice. So like the company name, all the tax details and address and all that kind of legal stuff that we need. And on that questionnaire, that type form we send, there's two questions that are both compulsory and have to be filled out. One is, what's the name of the person who pays our invoices? And the second question is, what is their favorite animal? And it might seem weird, but when Carol from accounts, who does this day in, day out, fills out that Labrador puppies are her favorite animal, we get that. We then attach an image of their favorite animal to that invoice. And when that person who's responsible for paying invoices is going through invoice after invoice after invoice at the end of a week, getting those, figuring out which ones to get paid before their lunch break, guess what? Ours is top of the pile, because we've kind of recognized that there's a person there. There's someone that you can kind of talk to in a different way and get their attention and let you know that you do things differently, and then it gets their attention, and they kind of you can make people do things that you want to do if you just think outside the box a little bit. So this is a really cool hack. So steal this if you want to. So that's how to have a clear agreement, and these are 3 things to do to be a profitable designer. So my false first belief was that it is hard to be profitable as a designer, and that's completely false. That is not a true belief at all. The truth is this: being profitable as a designer is easy when you know how. Secret number 2, how to stop doing everything yourself and instantly make more money. So again, my false belief for years was that I needed to do all the work myself. I have severe OCD. I'm a perfectionist. I think nobody can do an invoice as well as I can do an invoice, and everything has to be typeset and laid out perfectly. That is not the case. It's not the case at all. I don't need to do all the work myself. And the minute I realized this through a mentor of mine really drilling it into me was the minute that everything changed for me. So how to stop doing everything yourself and instantly make more money? There's 3 steps to this. The first is to find out what you absolutely love and hate to do. As founders, as designers, as freelancers, whatever we want to identify as, we need to be doing the things that we love and figure out the things that we don't like to do. How can we get them off our plate and get somebody else to do those things? So that as a first step, figure out the things that you love to do, and all the things that you don't like to do, get them into another list, get them onto a different page, and let's just map those out into 2 different things. Then what we need to do is find people who can do those things that we hate to do at a cheaper price point than what we charge, and then SOP that, which is a standard operating procedure. And I'll show you what I mean about that in a second. And the third thing we need to do is then free up our time so that we, as the kind of designers, as the founders, as the people driving this business forward and driving this experience, can focus on our craft and our experience. So again, I'll go into detail on that in a second. So this is a really good place to start. This has been doing the rounds for a while now. I picked this book up just before COVID in an airport. And this is a really cool concept. Ikigai, if you haven't heard about it, Google it. There's an amazing book out there. It's around here somewhere. But this is a really great book. But this kind of makes my brain hurt. So I simplified it right back down to this so that I could really understand it. And for me, this is everything. Work that you love, work that you're really good at, and work that people will actually pay you for. This is what you need to be doing. These are the things that you need to be doing day in, day out. If you can achieve this, which is not hard to do, you just need to map out these 2 lists and figure out how to get someone else to do the things that you hate to do. If you can do this, you're in a really good place. You like jump out of bed every morning because you're so excited about your work, and you're so excited to sit at your desk and do what you want to do. And that's when you can move mountains, when you literally cannot wait to sit down and work. It's a really, really cool place to be. So find out what you love and find out what you hate, map them out into 2 separate lists. Then we need to find people that can do this for cheaper than us and SOP this. So realize that there are people out there who are better than you at certain things. I had to get my ego out of the way to realize this a few years back. I, again, like just being a full perfectionist with severe OCD, I wouldn't let anybody do anything with anything that would have anything to do with our business. It's insane when I think about it now. But there are people out there who are way better than you at certain things. Find people who can do those things that you hate for cheaper. And there are people out there, because you need to know how much you can be charging. If you've done your MLE, you know your minimum level of engagement is this. If you map that out to how much you work at an hourly rate, you can figure out what your hourly rate is on paper. Find out people to do this cheaper. Then write clear and foolproof SOPs to help them do things your way. And this is really, really important, particularly if you have OCD and perfectionism like I do. It's one thing handing something over to someone else to do and fingers crossed they get it right. But if you create a clear standard operating procedure and you explain to them once, because you record it, you map it out step by step, you do it in a Loom video, you do this once and you do it as amazingly as you can, you typically get things back the way you want them to be. And this is the whole kind of reason that we're doing this, right? So this is an example of a standard operating procedure. At one point, I was still designing brand guidelines for all the clients we work with, and it became a real laborious task for me. And also realizing as a business owner, like I should not be designing brand guidelines because there are people out there who are way more capable of me than doing that and can do that more cost effectively. So I mapped out the exact kind of step by steps that I take literally whilst doing it, of what I take to make a brand guidelines document, how I name the files, exactly how I upload the fonts, every single step, so that there's no question that I can be badgered with by somebody that I've given this task to do. Step 3, like name and replace colors. Like this is the way I do things. So I've mapped it out so another designer can come on to this project, literally go through these steps, understand how we do things in our little business, and make sure that everything we get back is done exactly the way that we would do them. And this is what we call mapping out a standard operating procedure. And it's a real simple, old school teaching framework that follows a simple principle of I do, we do, you do. And I found that really helpful with SOPs. It's like I do something, then we do it together. Like, I'll show you how the SOP works, and I'll show you how I do it. And then you go away and you do it yourself. And if you need any questions, come back to me. But typically, that kind of 3-step process, you can teach pretty much anyone to do anything if you do it the right way. So that is the second step of how to stop doing everything yourself and instantly make more money, is to get people who can do things cheaper than you and SOP those things that you hate to do and get those people to do those things. The third thing is to focus on your craft and your experience. So if you're not doing those things that you hate doing, those kind of like designy, admin-y things, like you shouldn't be doing the books and invoices and all that stuff. There's people that can do that for peanuts as well. You just need to find out the right place. I want to say peanuts, I don't mean in a negative way. I mean, there's good people that can just do things cost effectively for you. But what it allows you to do as a business owner is really focus on the work. And when I say the work, I mean the actual design work, the actual client experience, so that when you deliver a piece of work, you can then syndicate that to all your media outlets and it gets PR and gets publicity because the work is genuinely very good because you've been focused on the work. And the client has had the best experience. So they're just jumping up and down. And guess what? When next time they're at a dinner table and their friend goes, "Oh, I'm thinking of starting a business and I want some design work done or I need a brand made," your name comes up in conversation because they had such a great experience with you, because you weren't focused on those admin painful tasks that you know you don't want to do, and you know you're very good at, and you actually hate doing those things. So stop doing those things, and we can focus on doing the best work and having the best experience for our clients. So these are the 3 things you need to do in order to stop doing everything yourself and instantly make more money. So my false belief, number 2, was that I needed to do all the work myself. Completely false. The truth is this: when you stop doing everything yourself, you start to become insanely more profitable. So please try this, map out these 3 steps and do this, and you'll see exactly what I mean. It's crazy how this works. While I'm at it, if you are interested in any of this stuff that I'm putting down, I have a weekly newsletter called Brand Bangers. It's linked in the description below. Click on that, and I'll send you a newsletter every Sunday with 3 absolute bangers. So if you're a brand designer or any type of designer for that matter, you'll get immense value out of that. Secret number 3 is how to double, triple, or even quadruple your prices overnight. This might seem crazy, but it is actually true. I had this false belief that I just can't raise my price. I felt like as a designer, I had my process, I sold it at X amount, whatever that was at that time, and I just couldn't. I had this kind of mental block that I just couldn't charge more than that because I was a 10 grand, 20 grand, 5 grand designer, whatever it was at the time. But this is just a false belief. So there's a few ways to kind of double, triple and quadruple your prices overnight. The first one is to fish in the right pond. I'll show you about that in a second. The next is to get support. So we need community, we need a mentor, we need somebody. This is honestly the biggest hack in business that I've found, is that when you're going through something, you might be faced with a challenge where you feel like, oh my goodness, this is so difficult. This is so tricky. How am I going to get through this? You know what? This isn't the first time this has come up with anybody. There are people out there who have done this and do this and have done this very well. You just need to find them. That's all you need to do, is find them through community, through mentorship, and ask them, hey, you're where I want to be. How do I get there? I'm currently here. What do I need to do here? And you just need to ask the right questions and you'll get that kind of information you need, which takes me to point number 3, which is ask the right questions. So I'll tell you about a horror story with that in a second too. So the first one is you need to fish in the right pond. And what I mean by this is you need to know who your niche is. You need to know who your ideal customer is. You need to know who you can provide value to. You need to be positioned in the right way so that when you go out there and speak to those prospects and you talk about how much you charge, there's not that kind of price shock and horror where they run the other way and then you end up haggling on price. So if you're fishing, like for example, in the pond of first-time founders that are they've never done a business before, they don't have any money, they're kind of bootstrapping it themselves. They're going to look at, we need a logo. We need a logo. We've got $1,000. We've got 5 grand, whatever that number is, a few $100, whatever it might be. If you're fishing in that pond and you're trying to win a 20, 30, $50,000 piece of work as a studio, you're fishing in the wrong pond. So you need to understand who your customer is. You need to identify your ideal customer. We work through this in the brand strategy work that we do with our clients. We do exactly the same thing for ourselves. We run through the brand strategy. We figure out who our ideal customer is, our ideal audience. And then we position our business and ourselves to speak to that exact customer, that exact client that we want to be our client for our studio and our design business. So we need to fish in the right pond. It's really, really important. The second thing is to get support or some sort of community or mentorship. So this is Sophie. Sophie has been part of my community for about a year now, a few months. She came into the program. She had a kind of mental cap on how much she charged. She hadn't really raised her prices in 2 or 3 years. And on week 5, she had a lead come in, and I just kind of walked her through step by step on what to do. And she closed that project at 4 times what she'd normally charge, what she'd charged her highest amount. It was 4x. It's crazy. I've done the same thing. Just literally just knowing the right type of clients. And again, fishing in the right pond is really important. She just always been in a situation where she dealt with a client that paid that type of money and there was referrals from the same type of existing clients. So it was important for her to recognize this, that she was fishing in the wrong pond. She started fishing in the right pond with the right clients and talking the right language and, landed a project that's 4 times bigger than she charged previously. So this really does happen overnight. You just need to be aware of the type of client you're talking to. You need to be aware of how you're positioning yourself. You need to kind of do this with the support of a community mentor around you, because that gives you the confidence to be able to go out there and have those conversations. The third thing is to ask the right questions. So I lost once I beg your pardon, I once lost a $220,000 project for not being expensive enough. And what happened with that was we'd done a piece of work for a financial services client, a pretty big corporate business, and they loved us. They just loved the work. They loved our process. There was just rave reviews at the end of it, and it was really cool. And after that, a few months later, they said, "Hey, we've got this piece of work. We really want you to come in and kind of pitch for this." And I don't really pitch. Like I've lived through the pitch days, and it's disastrous. I don't go near those days anymore. But they said, "Look, you've done such a good job. It's literally just a process we have to go through. There's 2 other agencies that are coming. Just do the pitch. All you got to do is fill out kind of a proposal form and kind of, put in some paperwork. Don't put too much effort into it. You've pretty much got the job." So I did. I jumped through the hoops. I spent 2 days putting this proposal together. And I came in at the price point of $120,000. At that stage, this was a few years ago now, at that stage, that would have been the biggest piece of work we would have ever have won as a studio. It would have changed our business dramatically at the time. And I put that proposal forward and fingers and toes crossed that we win the business. And it went silent for a week, which was crazy. Because normally, that client was particularly responsive. And eventually they got back in touch and said, "Look, this has been so difficult. Everybody wanted to work with you, but you came in too cheap. The other agencies came in at kind of 220, 240 around there. And we just realized that, we did a bit of investigation because of the price point you came in at 120K. And we just realized you guys were just too small." And it's a shame because if you come in at like that 220, 240 mark, you would have just got the work hands down. It wouldn't even have been a question. So This is a really, really expensive lesson to learn. So make sure you ask the right questions. So my false belief number 3 was this: I can't just raise my price, and it's completely false. You absolutely can. If you're fishing the right pond, you can. If you're asking the right questions, you can. And the truth is this, that mindset, operations, and the right type of support can help you easily double, triple, or forex your prices overnight. I've seen this happen for other people. I've done this for myself, and I've helped other people do this too. And trust me, it just works. If you're fishing the right pond and asking the right questions and you have the right type of support, this is completely possible. You just need to know how to do it. That's the end of the video. I hope you got some value out of it. See you in the next one. Peace.